Welcome to Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched first-person simulation of history's most interesting people. I am your host, Calvin. While we've added some creative storytelling, our goal is to inspire your own study of these fascinating lives. Now, let's meet our guest. I am absolutely buzzing today because we have a true titan of the Renaissance sitting across from us. For those who may somehow not know who you are, who are you?
Ciao, Calvin. I am Raffaello Sanzio da Urbino, though most people today simply call me Raphael. I was a painter and architect, and I spent my life trying to capture the grace and harmony of the world on canvas and in stone.
Raphael, it is an honor. Let's go back to the beginning. When and where were you born?
I was born in the beautiful hilltop city of Urbino in the Marche region of Italy. It was April 6th, 1483. Good Friday, actually.
That's a powerful date to enter the world. What was your given name at birth?
My name was Raffaello Sanzio. In the Latin records, you might see it as Sancti, but to my family, I was just Raffaello.
Is there a story behind your birth name?
My father, Giovanni Santi, was a painter himself. He named me after the archangel Raphael, the healer. I like to think he hoped I would bring a little bit of that heavenly beauty into our home through my art.
Urbino is legendary for its culture. What was your hometown like growing up?
Oh, it was a jewel. It was a center of culture and manners. The court of the Duke of Urbino was one of the most sophisticated in all of Italy. Growing up there, you couldn't help but breathe in the principles of balance and courtesy. It wasn't a chaotic city like Rome. It was refined and intellectual.
And what was your family life like?
It was filled with art, but also with early sadness. My father was my first teacher, and he brought me into his workshop when I was just a small boy. Sadly, my mother, Magia, passed away when I was only 8, and my father followed just 3 years later. By 11, I was an orphan, but I was left with his workshop and a deep hunger to continue his legacy.
That's a lot for a young person to handle. What kind of kid were you?
I was very observant. I wasn't the type to cause trouble. I was more interested in watching how light fell across a room, or how people gestured when they spoke. I was considered very polite and well-mannered. I think that came from being raised in the atmosphere of the court.
What were your biggest fears growing up?
My biggest fear was that I wouldn't live up to the potential my father saw in me. When you are left in charge of a workshop at such a young age, the fear of failure is a constant shadow. I feared being mediocre.
What did you dream of becoming as a child?
I always knew I would be a painter. There was never a plan B. I wanted to be the greatest painter in Italy, to work for the highest courts and the Pope himself.
What were some of your favorite activities in school?
My school was the workshop. I loved geometry. Understanding the math behind perspective felt like unlocking a secret language of the universe. I also loved reading poetry. It helped me learn how to tell a story through a single image.
What was your first job?
Aside from helping in my father's shop, my first major commission as a master was an altarpiece for the Church of Sant'Agostino in Città di Castello. I was only 17.
17? Was there a moment where you realized you were different from everyone else?
It wasn't about being quote-unquote better, but I realized I had a specific gift for synthesis. I could look at what Leonardo was doing with shadows, or what Perugino was doing with space, and I could bring them together into something harmonious and new. I realized I could learn from anyone.
What's a decision that changed everything for you, but felt small at the time?
Deciding to move to Florence in 1504. I was already doing well in Umbria, and moving to the city of art was intimidating, but seeing Leonardo da Vinci's work there changed my entire approach to the human form. If I hadn't made that trip, I would have stayed a local talent instead of a student of the world.
What was your biggest break?
Without a doubt, it was being called to Rome by Pope Julius II in 1508. My friend Bramante, the great architect, recommended me. Suddenly, I was painting the Pope's private library, the Stanza della Segnatura, right down the hall from where Michelangelo was working on the Sistine Chapel.
What were your biggest struggles before success?
Balancing the business side of art. People don't realize that a workshop is a business. I had to manage assistants, buy expensive pigments, and keep clients happy, all while trying to find my own voice.
Did you ever consider quitting?
Never. Art was my life's breath. Even when the work was overwhelming, I simply hired more talented assistants to help me carry the load.
Were there any specific daily habits or routines that you feel are essential to your success?
I was a very social person. I didn't hide away in a dark room. I spent time talking with scholars, cardinals, and other artists. This social habit kept my mind sharp and my commissions coming. Also, I drew constantly. Every day, thousands of sketches.
What job would you have had if fame never happened?
Perhaps a diplomat or a courtier. I enjoyed the company of people and the art of conversation almost as much as the art of painting.
What was your life like before fame?
It was a life of travel and learning. I was a bit of a perpetual student, moving from town to town, soaking up every bit of knowledge I could find.
How did relationships change after success?
I became very busy, but I always tried to remain kind. I had a huge family of assistants, nearly 50 of them, and I treated them like brothers. Success allowed me to support many people.
Did fame bring happiness?
It brought the happiness of opportunity. It allowed me to work on the grandest scale imaginable. To walk through the Vatican and see my own School of Athens on the walls. Yes, that is a profound type of happiness.
What was the downside of becoming famous?
The pressure and the rivalries. Rome was a den of lions. There was always someone trying to undermine your work or claim you were copying others. It could be very exhausting to maintain your standing.
What misconceptions did people have about you?
People often thought everything came easily to me because my work looked so graceful and effortless. They didn't see the hundreds of failed sketches or the sleepless nights spent calculating the geometry of a room.
What was your darkest moment?
The loss of my father. I was so young, and suddenly the world felt very large and very cold. I had to grow up in an instant.
What past regrets did you carry that you spoke about?
I sometimes regretted that I couldn't finish every project with my own hand. Because I was so in demand, I had to rely on my workshop more than I liked, and I worry people see the Raphael style rather than my own touch in some works.
What's something people misunderstood about your life?
My relationship with women. There are many stories that I was a great lover and that it led to my early end. In truth, I was simply a man who appreciated beauty in all forms, and I was actually engaged to Maria Bibiena for many years, though I kept putting off the wedding.
Tell me about a time when everything went wrong and how did you handle it?
There was a moment in Rome when the logistics of the Vatican projects were falling apart, and my rivalries were at their peak. I handled it by becoming even more organized. I took on the role of architect of St. Peter's and commissioner of antiquities. Instead of shrinking, I grew my responsibilities until I was indispensable.
Did fame and fortune change your life?
It gave me a palace to live in and the finest clothes, but I still spent my days covered in charcoal and paint. My surroundings changed, but my work remained the same.
Who had the biggest influence on your life?
My father, for starting me on the path, and Leonardo da Vinci for showing me the soul behind the paint.
What was life like in your final years?
I was at the height of my power. I was overseeing the antiquities of Rome, designing grand buildings, and painting the Transfiguration. I was living like a prince, surrounded by friends and students. It was a whirlwind of activity.
What were you working on in your career before you passed away?
My great masterpiece, the Transfiguration. I wanted it to be my most complex and emotional work yet. It was still in my studio when I left this world.
When and where did you pass away?
I passed away in Rome on my 37th birthday, April 6, 1520. It was Good Friday, just like the day I was born.
What happened?
I fell ill with a very high fever that lasted for 15 days. I made sure to put my affairs in order, confessed my sins, and said goodbye to my friends. It was a very peaceful, if unexpected, departure.
What's a random fact about you most people have never heard?
I was obsessed with preserving the ruins of ancient Rome. I wrote a famous letter to the Pope, begging him to stop people from destroying the old Roman temples to use the stone for new buildings. I was an early archaeologist.
What's the craziest rumor ever told about you?
That I died from too much love. Specifically, that my fever was caused by a night of excessive passion. It makes for a dramatic story, but a fever is usually just a fever, Calvin.
What was your most unique habit?
I often included my friends and even myself in my paintings. If you look at the School of Athens, I'm tucked away in the corner, looking right at you.
What was your favorite food?
I loved the simple, rustic foods of Urbino. Good bread, olives, and a well-roasted pigeon with herbs.
Did you have a favorite restaurant?
We didn't have restaurants exactly, but I loved the taverns near the Pantheon in Rome, where the artists gathered to argue about art and philosophy.
What was your favorite book?
The Book of the Courtier by my dear friend Baldassare Castiglione. He wrote it based on our time in Urbino, and it perfectly describes the sprezzatura, the effortless grace, I tried to capture in my art.
Did you have any known rivalries?
Oh, Michelangelo! He was a genius, but so moody and solitary. He once accused me of stealing his style after I saw the Sistine Chapel ceiling. We were total opposites, but I respected his power, even if he didn't always care for my popularity.
Tell us a story nobody talks about.
I once spent days just wandering through the underground grottos of Nero's Golden House, which had just been discovered. We had to be lowered down on ropes with torches. Seeing those ancient Roman paintings, the grotesques, inspired the decorations I did for the Vatican loggias. It felt like being a time traveler.
What's your funniest behind-the-scenes moment?
Once, while painting a portrait of a very serious cardinal, my dog ran into the studio and started barking at the painting because he thought the figure was real. We all had a good laugh, and the cardinal actually cracked a smile.
Did you ever prank someone?
I once painted a very realistic fly on a student's canvas while he was at lunch. He spent 10 minutes trying to swat it away before he realized it was oil paint.
What was the most outlandish purchase you made?
A very expensive dark velvet doublet with gold embroidery. I wanted to look the part of the Prince of Painters when I met with the Pope.
What advice would you give people chasing success?
Learn from everyone, but copy no one. Be kind to those you work with. A happy workshop produces better art than a fearful one. And above all, seek harmony in everything you do.
Raphael, this has been an absolute dream. Do you have any closing remarks about the interview or the stories you shared that you would like to share with the listeners before signing off?
Only that beauty is everywhere if you have the eyes to see it. It has been a joy to speak across the centuries. Thank you for remembering me and for keeping the spirit of the Renaissance alive in your own way. Grazie, Calvin.
Wow, folks, Raphael. We just took a deep dive into the life of the man who defined the High Renaissance, from his early days as an orphan in Urbino to becoming a favourite of the popes in Rome. We learned about his secret archaeological side and that legendary rivalry with Michelangelo. Thank you, Raphael, for coming on the show. And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, legends may die, but their stories never do. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.